Welcome to the next Brain Hope Reality episode. I think we have a very special guest today, Lauren, all the way from Istanbul. And it's an interesting story how she and I met. But I think if she can give us a quick background, where she's at, we'll start the show.
Thank you very
Lauren,
much.
you're on.
All right.
Welcome to Chicago.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for that warm welcome and introduction. So, I'm an author. I've had the honor of getting to work with a variety of really remarkable individuals. Done some books with Delta Force, Navy SEALs, quite a few military based. All of my books have a theme of someone overcoming adversity, something about human triumph, something about hope. I just finished one for the lovely Bibi Aisha. She was that young woman on the cover of Time magazine. Has a really compelling story. And now, most recently, you and I getting a chance to work together.
Thank you. So
and having a good time.
We had a great time. It has been, I have written a book before. It was a labor of pain. So as I was telling my co-author that a book about trauma should not be traumatic to the people, but unfortunately it was, and I will own up my part to it, but it has been challenging. So actually I swore off writing books at that point because it was a little too painful for me. And then through a very interesting circumstance, Lauren and I connected. And I think one thing we definitely share is the love for the special force community.
Yeah,
and veterans
absolutely.
And military personnel in general. But I have had the absolute honor of taking care of special forces from the United States and Canada. So I do understand that kind of personality style. Yeah. I've never been anything like that. But having done trauma surgery, I kind of understand what it takes, I think, to be that type of individual. Yeah. So I've never really had an author on this podcast.
Happy to be the first.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. We've had scientists, we've had military personnel, a couple of guys from Special Force from Canada, never an author. So what was your most interesting book that you wrote, you think, and why?
What a great question. I like all books for different reasons. And, I don't want to publicly pick a favorite because then I feel like I'm picking a favorite child,
Right, exactly. They're all beautiful.
I love you all.
Ways.
You're all my favorite. You're all special to me in some way. I've written 12 now. And yours will be the 12th, let's say. And it just met some extraordinary individuals. Probably Bibi Aisha, a young Afghan woman who was on the cover of Time. Her story is really interesting. And there's a lot more complexities to that story and what she went through. And of course, trauma plays a big role in that as well. So I think that was a very compelling story. There's another one that's about to be released with a former Delta Force operator named Tyler Gray. And I know you're a good friend of Tyler's as well.
Amazing man.
His I love because, sometimes war stories become this, let's tell combat stories. It's a hero's tale. And Tyler is great because he really was very real, very raw. Talks a lot about the identity fracture that can take place when your identity has become being that warrior and then you return to a different environment. There's some other things that he addresses there, like chaos addiction and some other things that really deep, a really fresh perspective. I really enjoyed working with him. So I would say all remarkable projects I've had the opportunity to do, but definitely put a lot of heart and soul into those in particular. And then one that's about to be released with a Green Beret named Daryl Utt, Grit to Glory. That was a good one.
Yeah. No, sounds like, as you said,
until yours.
I see. Well, mine will be very different. It's not going to be nearly as much combat. So, well, if you don't mind, let's talk about the book.
Yeah,
since you're here,
absolutely.
Why not?
Why not?
So the name of the book is the same as the podcast.
What do you know?
Shocking. Brain Hope Reality. And then, so the idea behind the book is to kind of make neuroscience accessible to the masses, so to speak. It doesn't have to be this extremely boring, painful,
dry.
It's like, oh my God, really? I have to remember I remember
like a textbook.
Exactly. I remember taking neuroscience in medical school. And I thought,
it shouldn't give you like some idea of being in school with a teacher over you, ready to grade you.
And I think first of all, we get along well with people, which is helpful. But the other part is I think you can take some of the stuff I kind of spout off and you make it meaningful to read. The other thing we've come up with is each chapter has a unique, at least one unique picture, which I
Yeah.
think is really going to be very helpful, because what I find a lot of books, a kind of visual
Yeah.
information is very useful. Not necessarily exactly how the brain works, all the fine. I think it's necessary, but I think the real stories are there, like
Yeah.
stories of, I think my stories of trauma, they're there, I think, to illustrate what got me to where I've gotten to.
Yeah.
But most of it is actually not necessarily about me. It's about, what is suicide? How do you get out of suicide? And it's ultimately, if you look at the focus of the podcast and the book, it's hope. If you have no hope, like my mother lost hope and she died by her own hand, hope is really important.
Yeah.
And there are real hope you can have, because a lot of times what I find in my clinical practice is that people come in and they've lost all hope.
Hope
They've
is
tried
everything.
everything, right?
Really, especially when it comes to mental health. I mean, hope is that life force. We need
Right.
it. We really need it. I think what I love about working with you is that you take a subject matter that for some people sounds scary, because it sounds complex, sounds academic. But what I love is that you embrace metaphor. And I think we've embraced a lot of metaphors in the book
Right.
that give you some kind of picture that you're able to understand your body. That's what my fight and flight system's like.
Right.
Okay, that's what the amygdala does. So we make it friendly and relatable, but I think the knowledge really is power. When you're armed with the ability to understand your own body and how it works, it removes a lot of stigma. And we've talked about this a lot. There's a lot of stigma in mental
Right.
health that we feel like we need to whisper about it. It belongs in the shadows. But this shows like these are physical things that are happening. This is how your body works. And embrace that curiosity, metaphor, a little humor there, here and there when we can.
We're throwing quite a bit of humor.
You shouldn't feel traumatized by reading a book about trauma.
No,
That's
exactly.
the goal.
I agree with that. But the other part, I think, was part of it. It's kind of a mystery story in certain ways. All the permeations of craziness that I've had to go in this whole method of trying to open up a new door in medicine. I never quite understood how difficult it is until I run across the people who try to hold it back. And we're still in absolute debate with American Psychiatric Association about the name change PTSD to PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. And really quickly, the reason that came about, PTSI term was invented by Dr. Ogberg, very famous psychiatrist. He came up with the term Stockholm syndrome. So he believed that PTSD is actually stigmatizing.
Yeah.
So I did a study showing that, and I showed it to the APA, and they go, "That's fascinating, but not enough information." So we are well on our way, hopefully, to move that along. But it may be tomorrow, it may be never. I'm hoping it'll be within a year. But in a very real sense, the name change can save lives.
Yeah.
Because actually, maybe you can recite the story about the Air Force man that was your Uber driver.
This was amazing on the drive here.
This was unprompted.
Yeah, totally unprompted. I left the airport and I had to make a run to Target to get a couple of essentials. And then he comes, he's my Uber driver. He's in the Air Force. And, we strike up a conversation and he begins talking and he's telling me things, and he's talking about some anxiety and some things. And suddenly I begin to just kind of ask him questions and I begin to explain. I say, I'm here in town. We're, doing some work together with the doctor. And that now we can see the changes in the brain on brain scans of what trauma does to the brain. And he's like, man, I said, it's not just, all in your head. It's not just mental. There are physical changes that's happened to your body. And we began to talk about the implications of that. We talked about the chaos addiction that happens, especially for warriors in particular. And I said, now we have more available treatments, just like an injured arm. I said, you wouldn't be ashamed right now. You wouldn't be afraid to tell your friends if you had a broken arm. You'd say, hey, man, sign my cast. Up top, bro.
Right.
Even it's a source of pride sometimes, for warriors to have certain types of injuries. Look at my scar. Right. But we don't feel the same about the mind because we, in some way, feel like it's a moral failing. I think we feel shame.
Moral weakness.
Or a weakness. We feel shame. And so I think one of the reasons that drew me to this book project, when you explain the name change from disorder to PTSI and injury, is it shows that this is treatable. It shows that this is physical and something that, right. and that offers hope. I think it also would allow many warriors who are suffering, but you go from feeling so empowered as a warrior and then suddenly feeling like everything's not okay, but you're trained, to give to the team, don't take from it. You
Right.
are trained to suffer in silence, and
Right.
you
They
don't
rub some dirt in it and move on.
exactly. And without knowing that there is a clear treatment option available,
Right.
your fear is that you're just going to be branded and labeled, and then you're going to, people are going to relate to you differently. So to me, the name change is so important. I think disorder definitely carries with it some heavy stigma that's hard. I think especially for warriors to wrap their mind around injury denotes something that, hey, we're going to get past this. So one of the reasons I was very drawn to this project was particularly your work with the name change.
Thank you. So part of, like I gave a speech at the conference in 2016. The name of this non-for-profit is Invisible Wounds.
Yeah.
So when people say that to me, my answer to them, it's invisible if you have the wrong scanner. If you have the modern scanners, right, like a PET scan or functional MRI scan that can actually look inside the brain, you can actually see the amygdala activation.
Yeah.
So there is a study being done in NYU actually looking at brain changes that can be reversed by using the procedures that I do, or kind of stuff I came up with. So I think that what we're hoping to do with the book is talk about that trauma is real.
Yeah.
Mental trauma is definitely real. And then you can do something about it. So thus there should be hope. And when somebody says it's all in your head, whatever, it's like, well, it is in your brain, but it's actually a reversible condition. So you can have a real life.
Yeah.
The other thing is people don't talk about is the physiological cost of mental health.
Yeah.
So it's well known that when somebody has PTSD, the chance of, but the reason I say PTSD just for simplicity's sake, I prefer PTSI. Anyway, if somebody has PTSD, the chance of heart attacks is 2 times higher. So also the aging is sped up.
Yeah.
So we are actually about to submit a study that shows that when you treat PTSD successfully using Stellate Ganglion Block or DSR, the more advanced version of it, it seems to reverse the DNA changes and be using epigenetic clocks. Our partners UCLA, so they're like the big cocoon in the space.
Yeah.
So I think you can really see the change. So if the point is there is a price to pay if your PTSD persists, early heart attack, right, increased aging. The other thing is 85% of men have sexual dysfunction.
It's a big concern.
That's a big number, yeah. So the way I explain to the guys usually is if you're running from a tiger, then you don't want anything sticking out. And it's a kind of simple thing. It's like it's a visual.
Makes sense.
Because it doesn't help
Doesn't
a
help.
relationship when that part doesn't work and just it's part of life. In fact, we are also submitting another article. We were able to treat a number of couples from Fort Campbell, and what I look at as PTSD. So let's say a male has PTSD. It's not always male, of course. They can give it to the woman and the children. It's called secondary PTSD. So you have this. You can look at it as an infective agent. In fact, one of the chapters we're going to have was PTSD being mosquitoes.
Yeah, but that's what I love about your, the way that you go about is you're treating whole families. And I think part of your story, I'm a storyteller, I love story. And when I listened and I, was able to capture, what made you who you are. And I think generational trauma, secondary PTSD is so important. The people closest to us. No, just like if you get a stomach bug, it always passes through the family. You have it one day and then the wife comes down with it the next day and the kids. I mean, it's very similar this way. And then the generational aspects, I mean, that gets into epigenetics and all that.
Right.
But,
So you can actually, so my grandfather, he was abused in Russia, or was Ukraine at that time. Then he gave it to my father. So my father was involved in some really horrible stuff in World War II, fighting against the Nazis. And that passed on to me in genetics. So when a lot of people throw terminology, epigenetics, half the people don't know what they're saying. So I have a degree in genetics from
That's nice.
1980.
That's nice.
That's nice, but it's irrelevant because epigenetics as a study of science only came out 18 years ago.
Wow.
So it's
I didn't realize it was that recent, actually.
It's new. It's a whole new. It's a whole new science, exactly. But the whole concept that you can activate different genes without mutation is a big concept, and then you can give it a couple of generations. That's even crazier.
Yeah.
right? So if you think about it from that perspective, so one of my I don't know who said that. Whoever said it was a brilliant individual. Um, Nature loads the gun, and then environment or experience fires it.
Yeah.
So you may have predilection to have PTSD, but if you're in this very calm, peaceful environment, you're not going to have PTSD.
Yeah.
So, but you have a predilection. So I had a predilection to it, and I was certainly not living in a peaceful environment.
That is very true. Yeah.
So, and that's true for many, 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 many people. You know, you could of course use very high-tech terminology, but the whole concept, if you think about why would God make this? Physiologically. So let's say you are a caveman. 20,000 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now your family is being chased around by saber-toothed tigers.
Uh-oh.
Not a good thing, right?
No.
So if that's the case, so now you're hiding in the cave. So you can't sleep, right? Because you need to be half awake or you're gonna eat.
You shouldn't be having sex.
Right. Well, also having children.
Yeah, you don't want
to takes
procreate.
a lot of energy.
You don't want to procreate.
So the equipment is not going to work so good, right? And you're on pins and needles, right?
Yeah.
But that's PTSD, right? But then if your children are born into the same pride, right next to it, you want the children also to be rubbed up like you.
Yeah. So, but you stay stuck in that state,
Correct. But there is a physiological way of reversing it. So I personally like DSR or Stellate Ganglion Block because I came up with it. But there are other modalities, such as TMS, which is magnetic way of modulating the brain. Mm-hmm. Ketamine, a lot of times, is very helpful. Mushrooms, I think, is very helpful. Psilocybin. Some of the other ones I'm not a fan with, which we'll get into it. But there will be a chapter on that in the book.
Yes.
But I think there's going to be some very interesting chapters. And the idea, again, is to kind of bring neurosciences to the masses, so to speak.
That's the goal there. With storytelling and some interesting things. And again, that, as we said, the knowledge is power. If epigenetics, loads the gun, but if you understand what's happening, if you can take choices that are preventative or supportive, then it's going to be, a huge factor in the outcome and quality of your life.
Right. We're preventative. And also, once you have the science of it, you should get treated.
Yes.
Right. So I'm a treater.
Yeah.
So, diagnosis is key. So one of the ways to do this is PCL, PTSD checklist, and it's available. If you put in PCL5 on the web, you can look at it. If you're over 45, you probably have at least some of the symptoms of that. And you don't want to ignore it at the point. And if your spouse has that or significant other has it, you don't want to ignore that because you can have like a quiet desperation life, which is not a way to live.
Not at all.
We've seen it. It's like, and it leads to marital disharmony. It leads to early heart attacks. And the children are like walking around, like around my father. I had to walk around. It's like, well, because he's been through a lot, and he's tried coming to the United States was also very stressful for him. And I don't blame him for that, but it was not an easy way to navigate life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that early childhood is so important, and I think for any parent too, that awareness to say the environment that I'm creating for my child by my choices, my mood, my health.
Right.
Actually, we create the environment that our children grow up in. So the healthier you are, the more your child is growing up in an environment because everything's being shaped in those early times. And so it's, I think even more important. And I think sometimes I think there's many of us that have a difficulty taking time to prioritize our own health. But when you look at children or family, sometimes you can do it for them.
It's not a good mirror, right?
You can do it for them first. You can say like, you know what, I got to get better. I got to do this.
But if you're healthy enough. So we've taken care of a lot of patients whose parents were schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And they got really screwed up from that.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard because there's no consistency. Yeah. Children need consistency and peace and quiet.
Yeah. That provides that safety, there.
Exactly.
What do you think is the thing that you're hoping the most that people learn or know? I know we've talked about a lot of things in the book,
I think hope is optimum, but besides hope, I think if people, arguably I'm an educator, so I think if people understand their bodies in a very understandable fashion, because a lot of times if you read it, you start getting it, it's like, there's so much detail.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's
feels
fascinating,
like a science class,
corpus callosum is like, why do I care about that part of the brain? Okay, connects two structures, but we don't care about that.
Yeah.
So I think if people can take away a couple of things. One, that there's only a couple structures you need to know.
Yeah.
Like amygdala, hippocampus, prefrontal cortex. I think if you got that, I think you're doing pretty good. And the interaction between them. And it's weird because in a modern age with scans, you can actually see what's happening in the brain. For example, Tetris game, which I play every day now.
I thought this was so interesting about Tetris.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way it actually came about is weird. I've never heard of it. So somebody calls me up and they're going, we need an expert on Tetris, how it helps PTSD in California. I was like,
and who's
never heard of it?
Yeah, self-proclaimed Tetris expert.
I know. It was never me.
That's not me.
So they sent me a paper and they go, read that,
Yeah.
do something with it. So I read about it. I was like, it's fascinating. So Tetris, obviously, has been game forever. So it turns out it activates hippocampus. Hippocampus is part of the brain that there's no test at the end of this, by the way. Hippocampus is part of the brain that improves memory. So that's where the memory lives. So, but also hippocampus suppresses the amygdala. Amygdala controls PTSD. See, getting old neuroscience. You're ready to be a neuroscientist. Anyway, so the stronger the hippocampus, the more you remember, and the more you can suppress the amygdala. So prefrontal cortex. Remember, I said there's only 3 structures you got to know. So PFC, prefrontal cortex, also can suppress amygdala. So the game you can play to activate prefrontal cortex and activate the hippocampus is Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers. Oh, all right.
Why? I don't know.
Interesting.
I mean, like, it's just how it is. But I mean,
so Tetris, Mario Brothers.
If you play those,
and you told me something about wasabi.
Well, wasabi. We'll talk about wasabi in a second. So, but
Okay.
wasabi, real wasabi.
Real wasabi.
Yeah, there was a study done in Japan, shockingly, that
what do you know?
wasabi has some amazing biological process which it repairs the brain and makes it grow back. So then I went on a quest to find the real wasabi in the United States.
Did you?
Maybe. I did find it. It took a year.
Oh,
so
wow.
I knew I was in trouble when I went to this.
So what's the difference in real and fake? Let's just get that clear first.
Well, if you look at, I'm getting
take out sushi. What are they serving us?
Hold on. So okay.
Calm
Good question.
Calm it down.
Slow it down. No. So one of my friends owns a sushi restaurant.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
I want a friend that owns a sushi
He's
restaurant.
Chinese. He charged me the same amount,
okay,
maybe
okay.
extra actually. Anyway, so I said, "Hey, do you have wasabi?" Oh yeah, we have real wasabi. Absolutely. So it brings out this big ass bag, and it says not real wasabi, horseradish. Basically, what people do in the United States, they take horseradish, paint it green, and they call it wasabi.
It's like cheese products. Some
Yeah,
yellow goo.
Yeah, something like that. Or Dominique.
Yeah.
It's not really diamond, but it's
really.
Dominique.
Dominique.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what's interesting about wasabi, you need to grow it the right way. It has to be the right temperature. It needs to be cold, clear water, blah, blah, blah. So there's one place I found an amazing man in the United States who does grow it. It's in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So a 1 month supply is $80.
Wow.
It ain't cheap.
In 1 month. So we're talking how much you're eating a day.
It's just 2 capsules.
Oh, taking
capsules. 2 capsules. Yeah. I'm not eating wasabi. That part, essentially, real wasabi is not nearly as intense as horseradish.
Really?
Yeah, it's not nearly as intense.
Interesting.
Anyway, so the combination, I'm also into synergy. I'm trying to combine things. So if you combine Tetris and wasabi together, that seems to be a synergy between the two of them.
Eat wasabi, play Tetris.
Not at the same time, but somewhere in the neighborhood. But there's biological ways to improve it.
Are you good at Mario Brothers though? I want to know.
I have not. No, I haven't. No, I haven't set it up yet. It'd be kind of hard on the phone.
I tried once, and I'm driving the car off the cliffs. I was like the last player.
We can play more.
I've never had an
interest.
You
look like Peach. Princess Peach. No.
I've never had interest in any gaming. I don't.
Nor have I really.
I have no capacity for it, and I'm terrible at it. But I don't
do
want
if you
to.
wanted to do.
I don't want to. I guess.
But if it's but I got to tell you, when people make me wait now in line, or I sit in an airplane to fly, I turn on my Tetris. I'm playing my Tetris.
I can get behind.
Yeah, it's easy. The other one is a little more involved, I think.
Yeah.
But actually, we are submitting an article to American Psychiatric Station for next year about Mario Brothers and Tetris because most clinicians never heard of it. nor do they know
yeah.
the mechanistics, right? I mean, why does it
Why?
work?
Yeah.
But if you understand why, I think it's better. But those kind of things, is having fun with neurosciences.
Yeah.
Once you understand those basic three structures,
Yeah.
you can see if you can things that can calm down the amygdala,
Yeah.
right? Prefrontal cortex, the other way you can grow it is do meditation.
Yeah.
So meditation will suppress the amygdala.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah.
Now we know why it's
Right.
working.
But it's been
benefits.
shown.
Yeah.
This is all data. It's
Yeah.
nothing. Not. It's a novel way of putting it together. And again, the idea behind the book is, I think part of it is to learn, part of it is to be entertained, part of it to understand how your body works.
A basic framework, because then everything else makes sense with that as a backdrop, a framework of understanding how it works. And yeah. And I think it's going to work to also improve the life quality of so many people. I mean, our brains are really the most important
also
thing,
prolong their life.
Absolutely.
So the whole thing about health span versus lifespan.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So lifespan is how long you live, health span is how long you're healthy.
Yeah.
So the idea is to promote the health span.
Yeah. Because you want quality of life. You don't want just a prolonged existence of suffering or sickness.
Yeah.
Quality of life. And we have science available now. We have so many preventative and supportive things that we can do. I think, why not? But I think what's great about listening to you is that you provide simple ways of thinking about things that sound complicated, have a way of injecting a little humor here and there, having fun while we do it.
I think it'd be a good book, and we may actually have an amazing announcement later, which will dangle it out there.
Yeah, we'll dangle it.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We're making a sizzle.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're making a sizzle reel.
A sizzle, if you know what
we'll
a sizzle is.
Sizzle.
Not bacon, but
definitely not bacon.
Definitely not bacon.
Yeah, definitely.
Different kind of sizzle. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I hope it'll be a successful partnership for us.
Absolutely. At least the journey's been fun.
It won't be dull. We'll have nice pictures.
Never.
Well, thank you, my friend. Let me turn this off. And then I hit the right button. Probably not. Okay, leave. And session for all.